Today we're going to be riding a motor coach from Chama to Antonito, Colorado, where we're going to be getting on the media train and riding that from Antonito back to Chama. We're honored to be on that train, and we are looking forward to taking you on that journey with us.
On May 21st, 2024, we rode the Cumbres and Toltec media train from Antonito, Colorado to Chama, New Mexico. This invitation-only event was created to invite the media to find out what it's like to ride this beautiful train and to thank those of us who contributed to the railroad's social media takeover during the past year. We arrived at Chama shortly after 7 a.m. to take the motor coach to Antonito. It's a beautiful ride early in the morning, and we spotted elk, deer, and a lone coyote as we made our way up to Cumbres Pass. It had snowed lightly the night before, and the ground was covered with a dusting of snow. While the train will take 6 hours to make this trip, in the bus it's less than an hour to cover the 46 miles. We had a few minutes before boarding, giving us a chance to take pictures of the engine. 488 would take us on our journey today. The media was invited to ride in the parlor car, and the photographers were invited to ride in the coach car in front of it. Right in front of our car was the gondola, which was where I would spend most of my time taking in the scenery and photographing. We weren't restricted to a car, but could go into any of the cars on the train. Because there were only about 20 of us on the train, and this was a repositioning move for the railroad to bring these passenger cars to Chama for the season opening on the 25th, the cars were empty. The only time I've ridden on the Cumbres and Toltec was representing Trains magazine on the first run of Denver and Rio Grande 168 after its restoration. That was a short trip to Lava Tank and back. This time I would see parts of the railroad inaccessible by car, specifically Toltec Gorge. This is a narrow gauge railroad pulled by a steam locomotive that is 100 years old. The cars are authentic, and this means that this is no Amtrak Superliner. Much of this video will use photographs because the movement of the train made videography difficult. We did have 3 photo run-bys, and those videos are perfect. A few miles outside of Antonito, we crossed the famous Hangman's Trestle. The ride up to Lava Tank goes over the flat plains, climbing the ancient lava bed. It's stark and beautiful, with San Antonio Mountain just to the south. The train has gained 600 feet in elevation since leaving Antonito. The original lava tank burned in 1971. The tank that was there now is originally in Antonito and was moved to Lava. The plan is to redo the pump house and plumbing up to the tank, but currently tank cars are bringing water up from Antonito and filling the tank to be used for the smaller engines like 168 and 315. After passing Lava Tank, the train changes and there are more pine trees, hinting that we're headed to the mountains. The train is climbing up a shallow grade, unlike the 4% grade from Chama to Cumbres Pass. The locomotive makes easy work of this. At milepost 299.42, we passed Bighorn Siding, which is 1,180 feet long. Today the siding has flat cars loaded with new ties that will be used to replace old ones. At milepost 306.06, we arrive at Sublet where the engine takes on water. There is a section foreman's home and several other outbuildings. The Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec have done major repairs on the structures. At milepost 311.3, we pass through Mud Tunnel. This tunnel is 342 feet long and lined with timber to shore up the tunnel because of the relatively soft rock. In 1982, the railroad installed concrete sills for the timbers and rebuilt both portals. Rock Tunnel is located at milepost 313.2, and because the rocks are so hard, no other bracing is needed. On the west end of the tunnel is a monument to President James Garfield. He was killed on September 19, 1881, and his funeral was on September 26th. The National Association of General Passenger and Ticket Agents held a memorial service on this spot on that same day. Emerging from Rock Tunnel, we are 600 feet above Rio de los Pinos, a point higher than the 400-foot Durango and Silverton is above the Animas River on the famous High Line.
The brakeman in the early days were running across the top of the cars. If his back was turned for any reason, the ropes would hit him, let him know the tunnel's coming up, and he needed to get down.
At Osier, we stopped and had lunch, which was also provided to passengers on the regular train. The dining hall burned a couple years ago, but has since been restored. Steam engines require constant attention, and the crew was dispatched to make a minor repair on 488 while we had sandwiches and salads. At Cascade Trestle, we had the opportunity to deboard the train and photograph it as it backed up and crossed the trestle again. This steel structure was built in 1889, replacing the wooden trestle. It is 408 feet long and 137 feet above the canyon. Our train winds along the Los Pinos River and enters the large curve at the Los Pinos Valley. We stop at the water tank to check on some recent work done to it and then climb towards Cumbres Pass. As we wind up Tanglefoot Curve, the snow from this morning has melted and we arrive at 10,015-foot Cumbres Pass. There used to be a post office, a general store, and a depot. These are gone, but what remains is a snow shed, a car inspector's house, and a section house, all maintained by the Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec. Just across Highway 17 is a phone booth that was rebuilt by the Friends in 1973 and makes a nice focal point for photographers. At Cresco, a water tank exists that was built in 1893. This spot is especially good for photography as the trains descend past the tank and cross the small trestle that is there. The original bridge over Wolf Creek is a wooden trestle. Today we cross the deck plate girder bridge that was installed in 1883. Due to weight restrictions, double headers are required to uncouple and proceed across the bridge one at a time. After crossing the bridge, we pass a 1,190-foot siding and remnants of cattle pens that can be seen on the west side of the track. These were last used in 1966. After passing through the Narrows, we cross Highway 17 for the last time and cross over the Real Chama with a 230-foot truss bridge that was built in the 1920s. Finally, we arrive in Chama, the western terminus of the railroad. This was a division point on the San Juan extension and the tracks used to continue to Durango and Farmington before being abandoned. I'm very fortunate to have been invited on this trip, and I thank the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad, especially Joy Meadows and Abby Martinez, for the invitation. When I boarded the train, I found my friend Roger Hogan sitting at a table. The seat across from him was empty and I asked if I could join him. When we weren't in the gondola photographing, we sat and talked about the railroad. Roger has been associated with the Cumbres and Toltec for over 30 years and knew all the ghosts in the closets. He'd been friends with governors and commissioners, and they had stayed at his hotel in Chama when he owned it. Less than a month after this trip, Roger passed away. I'll miss talking to Roger and comparing drone strategies before we each set out on our chase. This video is dedicated to Wacky Roger and his beautiful bride Barbara, and you too, Bella.